Hi, everyone. Woo. I'm Nicole Pallotta, Academic Outreach Manager at Animal Legal Defense Fund, and it is my great pleasure to welcome our keynote speaker, Professor Joyce Tischler, who is affectionately known as the mother of animal law. Professor Tischler is the co-founder of the Animal Legal Defense Fund and was its executive director for 25 years. Having retired from ALDF earlier this year, Professor Tischler is now a professor of practice in animal law at Lewis and Clark Law School, where she also works with the Center for Animal Law Studies. Professor Tischler has devoted her career to the development and advancement of animal law. When she began, there was no field of animal law, no animal law courses, no animal law programs, no animal law nonprofits, no animal law conference. Professor Tischler decided to change that when in 1979, she and a small group of like-minded attorneys started Attorneys for Animal Rights, which changed its name to Animal Legal Defense Fund in 1984. With her leadership, the Animal Legal Defense Fund has filed groundbreaking and major impact lawsuits and laid the foundation necessary for animal law to be taken seriously in law schools, law firms, and bar associations across the country. Professor Tischler is an internationally recognized speaker, author of numerous publications, and inspiration to countless activists around the world. Professor Tischler has encouraged the best and brightest minds to apply creative legal strategies to help establish greater legal protections for animals. As a result, the Animal Legal Defense Fund is recognized for its continual innovation in the field of animal law. Although the Animal Legal Defense Fund remains the only specifically animal law-focused organization, today most animal protection groups have lawyers and a legal strategy, something Professor Tischler recommended they do as early as 1986. In addition, almost every American law school has offered at least one class in animal law, and we have student chapters of the Animal Legal Defense Fund in virtually every ABA-accredited law school, which is a testament to the incredible growth in the field that she helped to create. Her most recent award was earlier this year when she was honored with the Center for Animal Law Studies Lifetime Achievement Award. Professor Tischler recently finished work on co-authoring a first-of-its-kind casebook on teaching animal law across the curriculum. She's also an expert in the developing field of farmed animal law and is currently at work on another book, which will be another first-of-its-kind casebook on industrialized animal agriculture law and policy. Professor Tischler's fond of saying, "I don't eat my clients," and a sentiment with which many of us agree, and that's why we're enjoying this delicious plant-based lunch here today, as we hear from the mother of animal law. So please join me in welcoming Professor Joyce Tischler.
Okay, they put me on the apple box, as usual. Hi, good to see you all. Hang on a sec. There we go. Dean Pamela Frosch and I just got back from a conference in Dalian, China 2 days ago. So if I'm goofier than usual, please just write it off as jet lag. I have to tell you, I'm really rocking this old lady thing. No, really, it's working for me. Strangers open doors now, and people offer me seats on subways. I know it's out of pity, but I really don't care. I'm finally getting some perks from the system, and I'm just loving it. And one of the things I'm really enjoying about getting older is that a lot of that constant chatter, Buddhists call it the monkey chatter, that constant chatter that has been in my brain for most of the 66 years I've been around, it has fallen away, a lot of it. And it's nice. The doubts, the worries, the second guessing, the am I good enough, it's just not there as it used to be. So that's something to look forward to. And quieting this chatter has freed me up to focus on more important stuff. And I hope this doesn't sound arrogant, but as I've looked back over the 40 years that I've been doing this work since I founded ALDF, I realized that I've done what I was put on the earth to do, which is pretty damn cool. That feels very good, and I encourage you to try to do that. If I have any advice for others, it's do what makes your life matter, and do what makes the world a better place, whatever that is. Don't waste your time, your very precious time, because it does go quickly, trying to please your parents. Uh, Trust me, my poor father died wondering when I'd ever grow up and get a real job. Sorry, Dad. Um, and I never got a job with a large, prestigious firm, and I did not become rich or famous, and I did not marry a Jewish doctor. Dodge that bullet. And as much as it bothers me to admit this, I never made it to 5 feet in height. Whose fault is that, Dad? But what I did was to follow that little voice inside me. People talk about that little voice, and you don't know quite what it is, and I don't know either, but hopefully it's not schizophrenia. Uh, but my little voice guided me to devote my legal career to animals. And that was considered pretty crazy back then. Not as crazy now, but I've spent most of my life as a California resident, so please be patient. I'm not going to sing Kumbaya, but hearing that little voice has been a godsend to me. As a result of that little voice, and despite the fact that I work in a profession that can be very cutthroat and brutally uncaring, I've been able to stay in touch with my deepest values and put them into action as a lawyer. I'm a lawyer who works to protect animals and establish their legal rights. I'm proud of that. I don't make excuses for that. I listen to the voice, and it has been my best gift. This weekend, you're going to focus on the plight of non-human animals, as well as the legal and other advocacy work that's being done to protect them. And that's what this conference is about. You're going to be shown a lot of disturbing images. You'll hear about the suffering, the abuse, and that's what the writer Carol Adams calls traumatic knowledge. You can expect that this is going to cause you to feel some very strong negative emotions. You're going to feel anger. You're going to feel helpless. But this is a professional legal conference, so those feelings are going to be blunted somewhat, and you're going to be channeling that into the efforts to find final solutions. And that's as it should be. From the start of animal law, we acted as legal professionals, determined to use our intellectual abilities, our training, our experience, and our passion in order to eliminate the exploitation and abuse that animals are subject to all over the world. And we've worked to transform their legal status into something that brings them realistic protections. I'm not going to talk to you about cases or decisions, so I hope nobody's taking notes. Good. I do that all the time in class. I was told I could talk about whatever I want to talk about, which is another cool thing about being the mother of animal law. They let you do what you want, you know. Oh, Joyce, yeah, let her do what she wants. Let her talk about what she wants to. So here's what I want to talk to you about. I want you to take a step back from the specifics of what you are going to do within the realm of animal law, and I want to ask you to think about why. Why are you going to do this? Why do you want to do this work? And why you? 40 years ago, when I would meet someone new and tell them that I worked to protect animals and establish their legal rights, they generally asked me, why? I mean, if you're a compassionate person, you know, the real question behind the why was, you know, why don't you focus on helping people, right? Because that's what's important. Animals are not important. And I would answer them, no, I'm working for animals because you ask that question, because you think animals are not important. But animals are important. Their suffering matters. It matters to me. It should matter to others. So with that, that brings me to the audience participation point of a segment of this talk. I want to ask you, and answer out loud, don't be shy. I always say this to the people in my class, don't be shy, speak up. Why do you work for animals? Why do you want to work for animals? Why you? Kevin, I'm cold calling now, just to get this started. Kevin, why do you work for animals?
It was very much like this nagging voice saying, I think, similar experience.
Yeah.
I do sometimes, I think it's important to always ask yourself, am I the right one to be doing this
Thank you. Thank you for being so gracious. I called on you cold call and you were eating, so. Hey, Randy, can you answer that? I don't know. Sorry, Randy.
So for me, it was very much a natural fit as someone who at least fancied himself as a crusader for the news community. So that started with the environment, transition into human rights, environmental rights, animal rights, all three at the same time. This is actually reflected in the recent book.
Yeah.
Change your voices to three worlds. Great place to be.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else want to stand up and say why you work for animals? I do know names, so those of you who I know are in deep. Okay, Priscilla.
For me, it's justice, so equality and justice that we all want to practice, and I want equality and justice for all living beings, not just humans.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come on. Gabriel. Oh, good. Yeah, let's call on each other. This is cool.
I guess for me, it started off as being a matter of fairness. It seems so unfair the way we treat animals for such hardness when it comes to science. It seems so profoundly unjust that a platform for motivation.
Yeah. It's pretty simple when you get down to it, right? Anybody else before I let you off the hook? But oh, yeah, good.
I think for me, it's that animal rights are basic human rights, and so that establishes the basis of animal rights. I feel like human rights is different stuff.
Yeah, yeah. In China, it was fascinating to see that the law students there are talking about animal rights. It's China. Human rights are trampled on, but they are actually actively involved in discussing animal rights. It's very exciting to see that. Anybody else want to share with us? Yes, thank you. There's a lawyer. Yeah. Each of us varies and our answers vary, but they tend to be pretty simple. Justice, compassion, making the world more fair and getting animals out of that state of constant suffering that we know they're in. I want to echo Kevin and tell you to hang on to that question over the coming years. Let that question guide you. Why am I doing this? Why? Because if you're actively involved in litigating on behalf of animals, you're going to be dealing with so many other questions, like what is standing and how can I get it? And it can take you away from what's really important, which is why am I doing this? I may have noticed, or you may notice in the next few minutes that I'm going to show you pictures of beautiful, healthy, comfortable animals, because the rest of this weekend you're going to see pictures that are disturbing. And I thought, I want you to see them. I'm not even that far along. Okay, there we go. Okay. I want you to look at the animals that I show you. And as you do that, I want you to think of a concept that I learned about a few years ago. And it's called Tikkun Olam. And it means to repair or mend the world. It's a concept that comes from Judaism, which was the religion I was raised in. But similar concepts can be found in every religion. Buddhism, of course, Islam, Hinduism, Christianity even, and so on. The world is broken. I'm here to repair it. Now, don't worry, I'm not here to convert you to Judaism or any other religion. So relax your shoulder and uncross your legs. Tikkun Olam encourages each of us to stretch our hearts and stretch our empathy. Look at that beautiful face. And embrace more of this world. To stand beside the wounded, the defenseless, those who have no voice, and to care that they suffer, to acknowledge and reach out to those who are ignored, who are abused, to speak up for them, speak for them. And Tikkun Olam is not just a religious concept or a feel-good concept or even a political agenda. It's central to the meaning of our lives. In every day, in every way, what our world really needs from us is to respond with more generosity, more mercy, better care. For me, Tikkun Olam means recognizing that the well-being of those with whom I share this planet, even that one, and I've been around them, they're kind of mean, but that's okay. The well-being of those with whom I share the planet, all beings, is also my own well-being. And it reminds me of what the philosopher Martin Buber described as I and thou. Some of you may know that concept a lot better than I do. Human beings can express two mutually exclusive attitudes towards the world around them. If the relationship is one of I-thou, then the human is aware of the other being as a whole being, worthy of respect. The other being is a subject, not an object, and the relationship is deeply connected, caring, and reciprocal. In an I-it relationship, on the other hand, the other is viewed as an object, a thing, separate from I. And this view is what leads to detachment. The other being is no longer a thou. It becomes it. And when I look into the eyes of an animal, even that animal, especially that animal, I see thou. I see the intelligence of that animal, the individuality, the desire that animal has to live out her natural life with her family. In the ways that matter, she's not different from me. And the well-being of that animal is integrated into my well-being. Whatever situation may come up, I will try to do no harm, but more importantly, if that animal is suffering, I will work to relieve her suffering and to offer her my love and my goodwill. Discovering how to mend the world is profoundly important work. When we stand in solidarity with all life, when we truly perceive of ourselves as part of the whole, not the top of the food chain, our experience of reality, of the world, shifts. We are no longer concerned only with taking care of ourselves and our immediate families. As you and I know, most human beings seem to believe that humanity is far superior to other species. We are the ultimate evolution of life on this planet. And that belief shapes the perception of reality, and frankly, it gets us off the hook, right? You know, we can pay lip service to wanting animals to be humanely raised for meat or humanely used in scientific research. But now that we've appeased our feelings of guilt by giving that lip service, the discussion and the thought process stops there. Because let's face it, when we think that way, animals really are not as important as what we're ordering for lunch. And I say that with all due respect to human beings. I don't dislike human beings. I actually am very fond of human beings. And I appreciate that human beings are highly creative and highly intelligent and have developed marvelous technological advances and great artistic achievements. We have done some wonderful things. I also realize that living in an I-thou relationship with animals and taking the responsibility of Tikkun Olam, that's exhausting. I mean, if I have to think about everybody, how do I get anything done? And each of us has limits. But one of our shortcomings as a species is that we seriously underestimate the importance of other life forms, and we mindlessly decimate habitats and consign another 100 species this week to extinction, right? And we feel stuck with a food system that is on a collision course with climate change. We raise and kill billions of animals each and every year in a completely unsustainable food system that harms all but the massive corporations that are getting wealthier as they produce produce tons of animal carcasses, animal manure, and decimate our rivers, pollute our air, harm human health, and clearly harm those animals. The list goes on of what we do as a species that really is questionable. And in Martin Buber's words, our species is stuck in this I-it reality. We see animals as the objects, and everything else we do flows from that. This I-it viewpoint doesn't jive with recent scientific studies and reports, which confirm that humans are not alone in their ability to feel pain and have a sense of their own being, to care about themselves and others, to live in communities, to have compassion for others, to joke even, and to cooperate with others. We're not the only species that does that. We know that now. We know that dogs and cats and pigs and cows and chimpanzees and turkeys, all of these animals and all of the others are more complex beings. They have a central nervous system just like ours. They show that they have emotions, that they have preferences, they communicate their needs, and sometimes they even show a sense of humor. Yeah, cute. But we have this schizophrenic relationship with non-human animals. We love dogs and cats. We spend billions of dollars on them annually, and yet we allow billions of turkeys and chickens and cows and pigs and other farmed animals to live in the most horrendous circumstances. Intensive confinement as if they were pencils in a drawer. They can barely move. They can barely turn around. They can't socialize with others of their own kind. They can't do anything that's normal or natural. And all of this suffering happens because for most people, including my own family and friends, whom I love and respect, for most people, non-human animals are not important enough to be informed about how they live, much less concerned about their pain. Through some quirk of fate or personality, the people in this room are different. We are able to see what others don't. We're like the dog who's not colorblind. We see the colors. We know that this world is unjust. It's an unfair place for non-human animals. This world causes them suffering and uses them as if they were things. We're able to step away from what the majority accepts and to say, wait a minute, the suffering of an individual animal does matter. It's important to that individual. And therefore, in the spirit of Tikkun Olam, it is important to me. Author and abolitionist Harriet Beecher Stowe once wrote that it's a matter of taking the side of the weak against the strong, something the best people have always done. Somebody has to stand up for the animals. Somebody has to speak for them. Fight for what's right, because they do matter, because their pain matters, their interest matters. And I have learned that my place in this world is to help human beings open their hearts and their minds to the widespread suffering that's inflicted upon animals. My task is to help them find their way to end the suffering. My career and the work that we do in animal law is a reflection of our understanding that we have a duty to mend this world. We use our legal skills to protect animals precisely because most people choose not to. We know that as much as we wish we could correct all of the wrongs quickly, I'd like to make this all go away yesterday. Sorry, no magic bullet. The truth is we have a long road ahead of us and much work to do. I met a student at the conference I was at. I met many people, but one student said to me, "It seems like the people your age are complacent. You accept that it takes a long time." And I said, it's not that we're complacent, it's that we have been doing this for a long time, and we've seen how hard the opposition fights. You know, we've had our face wiped on the floor a lot of times, but you haven't had that happen, so hang on. Hang on to that feeling that I want to make it happen today. I want to make it happen right now. I don't want to wait 40 years like you did, Joyce. And that's good. That's fine. Please hang on to that. So many animals are in a persistent state of suffering. And I caution each of us to ask ourselves on a regular basis, how can I get animals out of a persistent state of suffering? How can I help build a body of law that provides increased protections for animals, that recognizes that they have interests, and that forces our society to consider those interests and balance them against the interests of human beings? That's no small task, as we all know. Building the animal law movement won't just happen. We have to strategically build a movement that is strong and solid and successful, and we have to create meaningful change for animals within our legal system. We have to make inroads into a pervasive system that denies even the animal's most basic needs, as you know. We can't be bystanders. We have to start somewhere. It doesn't matter where. People say, what should I work on? And my answer is, pick an issue, pick a species, pick whatever you are passionate about, and then roll up your sleeves and dig in. I may seem confident to you now, but I wasn't born knowing that I would start ALDF. I spent my 20s as confused and miserable as anybody else. And honestly, if I had known how hard it was going to be to build a movement and build a nonprofit agency, I might not have tried. Therefore, I would argue that ignorance can sometimes be a very good thing. And in case you didn't know this, I didn't get hired as the executive director of ALDF because I beat out a group of qualified applicants. There were no other applicants. Nobody wanted my job because there was no salary for my job. I had to raise the money to pay myself. In 1981, we received a generous grant from the Animal Protection Institute. It was $6,000. We had no office, we had no support staff, we had no equipment. We had no clear idea, to be honest with you, of where we were headed. Or we had no clear idea of how to raise money. None of us. We were all lawyers. Steve Wise, David Favor, me. We were young lawyers. We had no idea how to fundraise. And I say that to point out that we weren't all that brave. We were, well, Steve would object to this. I think I'm quite ordinary. Steve would say otherwise about himself. But all of us who were there at the start of animal law learned how to build a movement by putting one foot in front of the other. Really, that's all it was. Just keep walking forward. We learned how to fundraise. We learned how to develop a board of directors, how to hire and manage employees, how to bring those lawsuits, and how to talk to judges in a way that they could understand. It was all part of what we learned on the job. We created the animal law movement because it felt like we had to. Okay, there was nobody in the back room. We had no backup plan. Animals desperately needed lawyers, and we could not turn our backs on them. No turning back. Failure, not an option. Why me? Because, to paraphrase the Rabbi Hillel, if not me, who else is going to do it? In the 66 years since I started stumbling around the planet, I have learned that we mold ourselves by facing difficult situations and by dealing with adversity. All of those seemingly scary choices that we are forced to make are actually opportunities. Don't you hate that? Yes, a challenge is an opportunity, but it is. Those challenges help us learn who we are and how far we're willing to go. Right now, today, you are doing important work. It may not feel like it. You are building your capacity to serve the animals and mend the world. The classes you're taking are teaching you what you'll need to know. You're exploring all of the resources you have available that the first generation of animal lawyers gave you. We gave you the foundation, but that's about all we gave you. You still have a lot of work to do. In addition to all the books that are being published, you now have law journals that will help you develop your ideas, and hopefully you will write articles for those law journals. give your input. You have clerkships, you have fellowships where you can hone your legal skills. The Center for Animal Law Studies is an extraordinary resource to you, even if you don't go there, even if you don't attend LNC. This conference this weekend, this is for you. Use it. Go to all the panels, network, schmooze, grab the people who've been in the field. Grab Randy, politely, and Kevin, and Matthew Liebman, and Amy, and Nicole, and all of the people who've been doing this work. Talk to them. Get them to know your name and your face. It's a small movement, and that's how you get into it. This conference is going to re-energize you and give you more tools for your toolbox. And so, really, don't be afraid or shy to reach out to us. Each of us somehow figured out how to do this work, all in different ways. We didn't know what our paths would be. Honestly, we didn't have a crystal ball. We didn't know what our careers would look like. Take advantage of what we have learned and use it. Use it to make yourself the best possible advocate for the animals, because they deserve nothing less. One thing I'd like to mention, because you may not have considered this as yet, understand that the work you do for animals is going to transform you. It's going to make you into the person you were meant to be, just as it did me. I know that sounds a bit theatrical, and I get that way sometimes, but I'm not exaggerating. That's not just something I believe, but I have experienced. I've seen it in myself, and I've seen it in my colleagues. We change. And who's that person going to be? That part I can't tell you. I can't tell you who you're going to be. That's for you to figure out. You may become a litigator. You might become a lobbyist. You may go to work for the USDA, and I encourage people to do that. Go into the belly of the beast and change it from the inside out. That would be a very hard thing to do. You might not have the stomach for it, but if you do, that would be important work. You might start a for-profit company that develops a plant-based or a non-dairy cheese, something that tastes like filet mignon but is made from mushrooms. Who knows? You might do any of those things. Some of you are going to burn out. Some of you will get overwhelmed by the suffering, and that's unfortunate. Learn to take care of yourself. I hope most of you will be able to hang on to hope, the hope of a better day for animals, and use that to carve out progress. I'm here this weekend because I believe in you. If you were not studying animal law, listen, if you were not here, David Faber and Steve Wise would be sitting in a corner somewhere with our heads in our hands saying, it was such a good idea. Why didn't it catch on? Why didn't anybody follow it? But we don't have to do that because you're here. We've built it and you've come. And thank you. Thank you, thank you. The future of animal law is bright because you are here. It's right here. It's right now. You're it. Maybe you didn't realize that, but you are it. You're going to continue the work that we started because we're all getting up there now. We're not going to be around for that much longer. You are the spirit of Tikkun Olam. You have opened your eyes to the needs of the animals. You have opened your ears and you've heard their cries. And you've opened your hearts. You've opened your hearts. You are learning where help is needed and how to provide it. And you're allowing yourself to be of use to mend the world. And I believe that together, not only can we dream about a more compassionate world, a more compassionate society for animals, but I believe that we will, against the odds, change this world and make it a far better place for animals. I started meditating, California, I know. I started meditating about a dozen years ago, and actually one of my students was a meditator, and she asked me how I got through law school, and I said, I was miserable, I drank a lot of beer, and I cried a lot. Because I hadn't learned about meditation then. Meditation is fabulous. I will try to talk you into that. But one of the things I learned in meditation from one of my teachers was a word called namaste. And namaste, when it's translated into English, is even lovelier. It says, I bow to the light within you. So I will close. Namaste. Thank you all.